Okay, hi, I'm back. This is Savas D'Souza again, and I'm explaining the electronic record section of the 21 CFR Part 11 Code of Federal Regulations for electronic records and signatures. Now, like I said in the previous part of this, in subpart A is general, subpart B is electronic records, and subpart C is electronic signatures. But I actually stopped at 1150. 1150 actually is signature manifestations. So even though it's in the electronic record section, it actually has to do with electronic signatures because it's the record requirements of the signatures. So I have a mnemonic for this, and this is 11.50 is signature manifestations. So my mnemonic for this is eBay near to me rocks. Near to me rocks. I'm jumping ahead because there are two clauses. The first clause has 1, 2, 3 subclauses, and the second refers to the first. So this takes a little bit of explanation. This refers to electronic signatures. The first clause is what are the requirements for electronic signatures. So first thing is name, time, and meaning. That's pretty simple. It's the first thing you're going to learn for electronic signatures. It's not actually the requirements for electronic signatures, it's the requirements for the manifestation. It's what the record should have. So the name is the full name, not the username, but the full name should be displayed. It should be available. The time, it should include the date, should include the time zone. It has to be the unambiguous time. And the meaning, again, why did they sign the record? Did they review? Did they approve? Did they do some action? Was it part of the audit trail where they deleted? Of course, you can't delete in Part 11. You can cross out something. Just like on paper, you can cross it out, you can sign and date, and you give a reason why you put a new record in. So you should be able to see the old record. But that's all for A, signature requirements. And B is, again, for the record. All of these records should be in human readable form. And all of these records, the data integrity requirements apply to all of these records. I'm paraphrasing the regulation. This is the meaning of the regulation. I'm not going to read the regulation for you. I'm just going to explain what it means. 1170 is, you only have to remember this one word, inextricable. Inextricable means the signature is linked inextricably. So the signature cannot be cut and pasted to another place. The signature cannot be deleted. the signature is permanently and inextricably linked to the record. Someone else can sign, of course. The signature should, once a signature is made to an electronic record, 1170 says that the signature should always be there. Okay, and now this is the actual meat of the electronic records. These are the requirements. So when someone asks what are the requirements for electronic records, what they're usually looking for is name, time, and meaning. But there are actually 3 requirements with 2 sub-requirements. My acronym for this is unique vulture needs purple people. So unique vulture needs purple people. And unique stands for unique. Vulture stands for verified. Needs stands for notified. So these are the 3 requirements for electronic signatures. The electronic signature has to be unique. Nobody else can have ever used that same user password, and that it should be tied to an individual. So unique. The individual before use has to be verified, so that's usually the IT department will hand deliver the password. They'll give a password. So they'll handle it, they'll write it on a piece of paper. This is one way of doing it. There are other ways, but it has to be somehow verified that that person is that electronic signature is the individual has to be verified. And the last thing is notified. So notified in 2 parts. The agency has to be notified on paper. So an actual snail mail, put a stamp on an envelope and send it to Maryland to the FDA. There's an address. We actually have to notify. So really this should come first. Notified. Really we should notify the people first. This is all written backwards actually. And the last thing is the people. So 11-100 signature requirement. 11-100 C1 and 2 is the paper has to be sent to the agency, and the people have to be notified that their electronic signature is their legally binding signature. So these 2 have to be notified, and then the people have to be verified, and the signature has to be unique. So it's up to the organization to make sure that their signature is unique. Electronic signature is unique. It's up to the organization to verify that they give the right username and password to the right person, and it's up to the organization to notify the people and to notify FDA. Those are actually the 3 requirements for electronic signatures. Name, time, and meaning are the manifestations of electronic signatures. That's the requirements. There's also controls for non-biometric and biometric. So I have another acronym for signature controls, which is number 2 first nightcrawler going to bed. So there's actually 2 clauses here, clause A and clause B. Clause A is for non-biometric non-biometric. And clause B is for biometric. So you can see for non-biometric, which is username and password, there are actually more controls for non-biometric. If you can still see that, okay. So, non-biometric A, it has to be in 2 parts, which again I said username and password, 2 parts. And there's 2 subclauses here. So this takes a little bit of explanation. It's a pretty simple concept, but basically, if the 2 parts are used for an electronic signature, and there's a series of signatures, so you have to review 5 records in a row. They're all continuous. You log into a page, there's 5 records, you're reviewing with an electronic signature, you're saying yes, 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 yes. For each of those, you don't have to do both parts. It's just basically it's a shortcut. You can do just one component. So if it's username and password, you can put your password in 5 times to sign 5 records. If the number 2 subsection clause for this is non-biometric. Sorry, we've got 1, 2, 3 subclauses. So this is for non-biometric subparts. Clause A, which is non-biometric, 2 parts. The first part is only used if they're continuous signatures. If they're not continuous signatures, we now have we have to use both components. So let's say you log in, you check the first 2 records, you can put just your password in. If you log out and then log in again, you shouldn't just have to, for the next record, you shouldn't, if you've logged out and logged back in again, you shouldn't just use one component, you'll have to use both components to sign the next record, because they're not continuous. That's all these sections are trying to say. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I think it's pretty straightforward. So number 1 is for non-biometric, there are 3 parts. First of the 3 should have 2 parts. The second is only used by the genuine user. It's an overwrite, but it's a blackboard. Nobody else can use the username and password except the individual who it was assigned to. So it's unique, it's verified, they've notified that individual. Nobody else can ever use their password. It's like nobody else can ever use your paper password, your handwritten signature. However, and it's not really however, it's in addition to, if someone wants to falsify it, one person cannot do it, and an administrator cannot falsify someone's genuine password. It will take 2 people. So it may take an administrator and a manager, a procedural control, but you can never use someone else's signature. If that person leaves, someone else signs for them. If they're promoted for whatever reason, and someone else has to sign a record, they sign with their own signature. They never sign with someone else's signature. But in addition to that, if someone wanted to falsify, because this is just part of the regulation, it would take 2 people to falsify, and then both those people would go to jail. And the final control is biometric. And they don't have any subsections for biometric because biometric is pretty good. It depends on your biology. It's as good as a handwritten signature if you've got a biometric system. There's no more regulations. So my last acronym for the signature controls. And I'm running out of blackboard space or whiteboard space. There's 5 clauses for signature controls. And my acronym, let's just put my spacers in here so I don't run out of space. Testing, there's enough room there. Again, we have unique, parrots, loves, raptors, tickets. So the acronym is unique, parrot, loves, raptors, tickets. Again, the clause for unique is different. When the password was created, it was unique. This unique is maintained, and it's up to the person to maintain that their password is unique. Basically you have to, your responsibility is to keep your password unique. Whereas unique, when it's set up, is the administrator's password to make sure that he doesn't set up 2 people with the same password. Test case here would be to make sure that try and set up a password with 2 people with the same name. They shouldn't allow that. You should call one. One could be called Savas D'Souza 1 and one could be called Savas D'Souza 2 if you have multiple Savas D'Souzas in your organization. The password has to be checked periodically. It also has to be recalled. There should be a procedure in place and generally a rule every 3 months, every 6 months, depending on your organization. There should be periodic testing and people have to reset their password periodically. Loves is loss. So if people forget their password, there has to be a procedure in place that they can remember their password. Or an administrator resets their password, but it has to be a written procedure in place. You can test it during the validation. Reports. Reports is if someone's trying to access your system, obviously a closed system, there should be a way for the administrators to know immediately and urgently that someone is trying to access the system. That's a requirement, 11300D. So if someone tries to use a password, generally the 3-time lockout can help here. If someone tries to use someone's username, puts in the wrong password 3 times, it will lock them out. And there'll be an immediate report that the person is locked out. The person will call up and go through their loss management procedure, and an investigation has to happen if someone's trying to access electronic system. And the final one is testing. So again, something we're very familiar with in validation. Testing has to, so the initial testing will go in your traceability matrix, which goes back to your validation, your first validation report. But Part 11 also says you need to do periodic testing. So that periodic testing has to be proceduralized throughout the life of the system. You have to make sure that there's testing to keep these things, to keep the data integrity intact throughout the life of the system. And that's all we have for 21 CFR Part 11. I hope that was helpful for the few people that asked me to explain it over the years. Okay, that's it. I'm going to sign out now. Thanks.